Hey, it's Nikki, and today's episode is a special series called In the Loop, Communicating for Maximum Leadership Impact with my friends from Borshoff. I am a huge fan of the work Borshoff does to advance internal communication, and so happy that they have joined Gut Plus Science for a special series. Get ready for internal communication inspiration. There's so many nuggets of wisdom here.
Hey, it's Katherine Coble, your host for a very special Gut Plus Science series called In the Loop, Communicating for Maximum Leadership Impact. Our big goal is to help leaders become better communicators, because communication is your best tool for leading well. Let's go ahead and dive into this month's topic. Well, welcome back to In the Loop, Communicating for Maximum Leadership Impact. Our guest today comes to us from Allied Solutions. It's a major player in the financial services industry, and you may not have heard of it unless you're in the banking and financing area. But Allied Solutions is a partner to all sorts of great clients, such as credit unions, banks, auto dealers, mortgage servicers, and a lot of others. And their primary goal is to help those clients to grow, to manage risk, and really improve their market share and other things that they have in terms of products and offerings. So we'll get into that in a moment, but let's just start by saying welcome to Ashima Kapur. She's the Chief People Officer and our guest today. Welcome, Ashima.
Thank you, Catherine. Excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we are so excited to have you. And as the Chief People Officer, I know you're going to have all kinds of great things to share with us about the intersection between people and policy and communication and leadership. And that's really what we want to focus on today. So, to get started, I would love to just share with our listeners a little bit of background about you. How did you get your start? And tell us more about the role that you play today at Allied Solutions.
I have always been very fascinated by human behavior. Even as a kid, I think I was always interested in the who, the why. Why do they do what they do? So I think psychology seemed like a good field for me. Went in to do my bachelor's in psychology. During my undergrad years, learned about a new up and coming field called industrial psychology and organizational behavior. And I think in the long run, it seemed to be the right field for me because it helped me bridge the gap between my fascination for human behavior and how to marry that to the business strategy. So after finishing my master's in industrial psychology and organizational behavior, I joined the HR world and have continued to grow from there. My background in psychology has really taught me to make sure that anything that we're doing is people focused. We say people are our most important resource, and it's important to be able to figure out how we focus on the business strategy, but in a manner that we're also focused on a people first approach. So, once I got into HR, I've played every role in HR. I've done talent acquisition, I've done comp and benefits, I've done training, what is now called L&D. I've done all of those. I've grown in my career over the years, and today I'm the Chief People Officer for Allied Solutions. I have a team of 30 plus employees, associates, and we serve a close to 2,000 employee company.
So, Allied is a pretty large organization. Tell us a little bit more about the breadth and the depth of the team. You said about 2,000 employees. What does that look like? What kind of employee base do you have?
Sure. So just a fun fact, when I started with Allied Solutions in 2013, we were only about 500 employees. We are close to 2,000 now. So an organization that's seeing rapid growth. Just like any other organization, we have our what we call the core corporate functions, right? HR, finance, legal, technology, all of those. And we then have a very strong distribution team, which is also referred to as the sales team. We also have a very strong product team. When you were introducing Allied, talked about the variety of products we offer to banks, credit unions, financial services. So we have a product team, and then we have a service team, which does include call center, claims, right? So a variety of other resources that we can offer to banks and credit unions for whether it's servicing a client, offering a new product, etc.
So, one of the things that you have done in your time at Allied Solutions is really, as you said, to grow the HR function. That's grown along with the growth of the company overall. Started out, I think you told me before, as really a small personnel department, and then really now has turned into a major talent development group. Tell us about your philosophy on talent development and how it can really drive the success of an organization, especially one like Allied Solutions that is probably a pretty different company today than it was even just 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, so let me add a couple of other things tied to Allied. We are a growing company. We are not only growing in terms of the products we offer, we're also growing in terms of who we partner with, right? So when we talk about our growth and our evolution, it's not just changing what we do, it's also changing how we do it. So for me, as I've been a part of that growth and that evolution, there are two key phrases that are always important. First is having a seat at the table. For HR, it's important to have a seat at the table, but I also recognize that I can just go to somebody and say, give me a seat at the table, and they're gonna be like, oh, sure, come join us. It doesn't work that way, right? So you have to make sure that you're building that credibility. You have to make sure you're showing them the value you bring. And that becomes a two-way street. You can show them the value you bring when you understand the business, you understand what the priorities are. And then you can put programs and resources in place that help that business strategy. It helps us achieve that business strategy, right? So to me, an important aspect has always been the credibility and the seat at the table, because unless we have a seat at the table, we don't know what the business needs are. We're hearing the business needs, but then it becomes more transactional. It's not strategic. But once we know what the business needs are, we understand the challenges that any business unit, department, small group of people, anyone's facing, we're better positioned to be able to help them. The second important thing to me is making sure that we always have the right person in the right seat. The term right person, right seat came from the Good to Great book, right? That's what they talk about it quite a bit, but it's such an important concept. It is not just about the top talent. You could hire the most qualified individual, but if they are not the right fit for your culture, if they don't buy into the company vision or the company strategy, it's not going to go anywhere. But the flip is true also. You can't just hire for culture. You can't just say, oh, this person buys into my vision, but they don't know how to do something. So either scenario doesn't work, which is why it's important to put in programs, processes, tools, and resources in place that get you to that right person, right seat. But it doesn't end there, right? So you understand what the business needs. You've hired the right person. You've given them the right role. You now have to make sure that they have the right tools, the right resources. They're empowered to do the work. We're hiring people because we believe they bring some value to the company. We now have to make sure that we're giving them all the tools and resources to do that work and to be successful. We then also have to make sure that we're communicating with them in a manner where they're very clear on what is expected of them, what we need to do, what is our culture, right? How do we want to do it? What is it that we want to do it? And how do we want to do it? So if we can lay the foundation for all of those things, then I think we've got the right culture, the right mix of what we need in people strategy. The last thing I would say in all of that stuff that I'm a firm believer in is every individual owns their own growth as well. So we can hire the right person, we can give them the right tools, we can empower them, we can communicate with them, but they also have to take ownership and accountability of their work. Not only their work, they also have to take ownership and accountability for where they want their career to go. Communicating with their manager, making sure the manager understands, making sure they are clear on what their manager is expecting. All of that, to me, is at least overall the philosophy that has shown us the kind of success that we've seen.
So true. And, Ashima, you mentioned a lot of the things that are important to you for the HR function to be truly a business partner to the leadership and across the whole organization. And I find so many of the things that you mentioned as important, having a seat at the table and the right people in the right places and that sort of thing. Those are all things that we always talk about in terms of communications too. We, within the communications function, have the same feeling. If we have that partnership going with the leadership, if we can show them that we do understand the business, that we do understand what they're focused on and what they're trying to accomplish, and that we can help be a partner in making that happen, it just really makes all the difference in our ability to be effective. And so often we see ourselves actually partnering with our HR component in the company. The HR partner often becomes one of our strongest allies on the communications side and an important partner in actually making the communication happen. Culture is built through good communication, and strategy is achieved through good communication. Change is achieved through excellent communication. And so many times we find our best partners in the organization really are in that HR function. So thank you from us on the communication side.
Absolutely. And everything said is so true. If you're not communicating, you think you're achieving a lot of things, but you have the potential for everybody to be running in 50 different directions.
Right. Absolutely. And so, of course, on this show, we focus quite a bit on leadership communication and how important that is. It's such a critical link for leaders to establish those touch points and that connection with their employees. Tell us a little bit about the communications culture, the leadership communications culture at Allied Solutions, and how do leaders use communications in the company? Or do you feel like it's something that's done well at Allied Solutions?
I think it's always evolving, right? As you talk to people, you have new people that join the organization. You constantly have to be on top of how do you continue to stay on top of what the right approach should be. Our approach at Allied is based on, again, two key foundations. One is transparency. People can tell when you're not being transparent and when you're not being authentic. The number of times I'll see it, right? When I'm listening to a leader, I can tell whether it's a scripted dialogue or if they're actually being authentic in what they're saying. And I think to me, one key message has always been, let's be transparent, let's be authentic in what we do. Transparency doesn't mean that we're always ready to tell you every single thing, every single moment as it happens. Transparency means that we will be very clear, very honest in anything we're communicating when we're communicating it, right? So that's an important aspect. The other key foundation has always been to make sure that communication is broken down into what I call bite-sized pieces. It's done in a manner that you can relate to. Every employee operates in a different way. Every employee is thinking in a different way. Can I tailor our communication to every single employee? No. But I think we can cater to most of the employees if we can make it relatable for them. Even if it's something as simple as what is it that we're wanting to share with you? Why is that important for you? When is it going to happen? And the most important thing an employee wants to know is how is it going to impact them? So if we can break it down that way, I think it turns out to be a very important tool in being able to communicate the company's strategy to every employee in a manner that they understand and then they can rally behind. So, and I'll give you a couple of examples. At Allied, because of that philosophy or that approach, we've had an ongoing quest for what is the best way to communicate anything that we want to communicate to the employees. There's a newsletter that comes out from me, which is more focused on all people-related things. We recently last year, we launched something called the Chief Brief. And I can tell you it never turns out to be brief because there's a lot of information on there. But it's an amazing tool for us because it resonates our CEO's voice. It's clear, it's transparent, it gives all the information that an employee may want. It is very open in saying, come ask me questions, right? Here's different forums where you can ask me questions. Communication is two-way. I want to understand what you want to know from me too. So it's been received very well. My communications teams tells me that for us to have achieved an 80% open rate on the chief brief is very significant. It's not normally seen. And that's a proud moment for us. It tells us that we're doing this right. It tells us that we're continuing to build it the right way.
I would agree that 80% mark is huge, especially in some sort of an asynchronous type of communication, like an email newsletter. It's very difficult oftentimes to get employees to really pay attention to that and to do it in a timely manner too.
And we have employees all over, right? Our head office, we're in Carmel, but we have employees all over the country with offices all over the country. So it's important for us to be able to do it in a manner where we can reach them timely, we can reach them in a format that they can read, whether it's on their phone or on an email, whichever way they want to access that information, it's available to them.
That's great. You mentioned authenticity and transparency as being really important and something that leaders there at Allied Solutions have been very focused on implementing in the communications. I know there are other things that various companies and leaders often struggle with. One thing that I have seen as a pain point when it comes to good communications is consistency and redundancy. I know about the time that the CEO or the top leadership gets bored with a message and they don't want to talk about it anymore, that's really about the time employees start even paying attention. And so I know myself as a leader, I have worked really hard to not be afraid to repeat myself because I know it's an important part of the communication process. Are there other things like that that you feel are maybe growing pains that over time it's an area of focus that you want leaders at Allied Solutions to grow in?
Yeah, so again, this is a part of our journey, and you said it right. I think I read somewhere that, for employees to really understand or incorporate what you're saying, communication has to be done in a certain manner. It has to be done in a certain number of times. I think it was 7 times maybe, but whatever that number of times might be. The key message is not every employee is either paying attention or listening to it right away. Sometimes they're also saying, well, is it happening right now? If not, it's not important for me. I'll come back to it later. So, one of the things that we've adopted now as we communicate is not just a one and done communication. We use what I refer to as a process of socialization, right? So you start with a concept, you start talking about the concept at a high level, you gradually start to give more details. As you go deeper and deeper into the detail, by then hopefully you've created an interest and the mind space from our employees that says, oh yeah, I remember reading about it somewhere there. Now there's more detail. Now I can build on it. Or I have an opportunity to ask a question. And every time we get a question, that helps us refine what we're going to do next, right? So, from a growing pains perspective, we've seen significant growth. I also talked about our evolution as not just on the products that we offer, but how we offer those products also. So, as a company, we're looking at it all. We're looking at, reporting structures. We're looking at how people are working, processes, products, whatever it might be. And so, it's important for employees to not feel unsettled. I don't want employees to think, oh, I got a message that said, this work group is being restructured. And oh my gosh, what does that mean? I want them to understand this is what is happening. This is when it's going to happen. So we have been very thoughtful in that we've focused on the messaging. It's been bite sizes. I can give you an example. This was something that I know was full of emotion. Through the pandemic, each one of us ended up having to figure out different ways of working, right? Were you working from home? Were you hybrid? Were you doing anything else? Once things settled down and we were ready to come back to the office, we determined as an organization that we wanted most of our people to be in the office. We've always had remote work. We've always had hybrid work because we have offices across the company. But for our core offices, for our home office in Carmel, we wanted people to be in the office. And we knew that there was going to be a reaction. People don't like that, especially if they're so used to something else. And so it was important for us to make sure that we communicated in a manner that was very clear on our stand. We are firm on our stand. This is what we need to do. But we're willing to take the time needed to get everyone to where we want them to be, right? And that came from, so I think for every step we took, right, we're going to 2 days of in the office work, or we're doing 3 days of in the office. Every step we took, We took the time to listen to the employees. We took the time to work with the leaders and partner with the leaders to understand the impact of the business unit. We then created a communication plan that spanned a good 2 to 3 months to make sure that we were giving information to them that was relevant, but we were frequently repeating that information so people were latching on to the key messages.
That's great. I think any planning and really thoughtful, intentional rollout is always going to serve you well, especially on something that is a pretty significant change. People don't necessarily love change. It's not that they don't want to change, it's just that they really want to understand the why behind it. And they don't necessarily want to be asked to do it all at once. They want to understand what's the process here. So it sounds like you had a great plan. So let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about how HR can really partner with the C suite to help build culture. Culture is something we talk about so much these days and how important it is getting the right fit with new hires, but also creating a culture for innovation or for change or transformation. Lots of companies are constantly talking about their culture and how they can improve it, grow it, evolve it over time. It's also an important thing when it comes to creating the right environment for aligning employees with the business strategy. And so I'm just curious if you could share with us a little bit about what are the best ways for leaders to really engage with HR, the C-suite to engage with HR to actually help build culture, because culture is really everyone's responsibility.
Culture is behavior, how we behave. And what everyone sees as the behavior at the top is what everyone starts to then replicate. So, to your point, yes, leaders can set the tone for the culture, right? If we say we have a culture of accountability, it has to start at the top. It is always a two-way street. You have to be accountable yourself, you have to hold others accountable, you have to be clear in communicating what you're expecting. So, when you ask me, how can we partner with the C suite? The key word is communicating. Partnership, communication, collaboration. Our job is to understand what the business strategy is. Our job is to understand what the important behaviors are. Here's our business strategy. Here's how I want to achieve that business strategy. And then we need to make sure that that very clearly gets communicated in behaviors, in communication, in policies, in processes, all of those things, right? Anything that we do should always have the undertone of those things. An example of that I'll take, right? When we talk about integrity as an important value, honesty, integrity, key component to any organization. It is not just important to talk about it, it's also important to understand how does that apply to the business? What does that mean in our business world? What are we going to do? And what kind of behaviors are we always going to project so employees understand? And then how are we going to hold employees accountable for that? Right. So if somebody is not behaving with honesty or integrity, what is it going to be? So it's important for HR, again, I said this earlier, to partner with the business units, understand what is needed, and how to translate it in a manner to each of the employees through our people strategy and policies.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about your personal leadership style and how do you feel like you've grown as a leader, especially in recent years?
Sure. So my communication style as a leader is very direct. I'm very open. You can see on my face what I'm thinking most of the times. My team tells me. And my leadership style overall is very direct, very open. I have high expectations. I will not ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. But then I hold you to that standard. So, so that's my style. But the key in all of this also becomes realizing that you cannot do anything alone. I cannot do every single thing that we need to do by myself. Even if I could, I need people with different thought processes to be able to respectfully challenge each other, to be able to understand what the impact to anybody else is going to be. So to me, being direct and open, being transparent, but then making sure that I'm surrounding myself with a very high performing team. Right? If I have high expectations, it automatically translates to a high performing team that probably has an equal level, if not more, of high expectations from themselves and everybody else around them. And we've been as successful as we've been because of that approach on my team. We all come together, we challenge each other, we work as a team, but we also know that our end goal is always to do the right thing by the employee.
That's so important. I think one of the big things there too that kind of goes along with that is being direct and being intentional about what we're asking of our teams proactively. So I know I've really tried to get into a habit in recent years of going back and asking people for feedback after a moment. So after a big pitch or after a big meeting, not just waiting for them to come back, but for me to go and ask those specific questions of the team members individually. How do you think that went? What could we have done better? Is there something I could have or should have done differently in that meeting? Those kinds of questions and just being really direct. And once you start to build that regular muscle of asking those questions, I feel like it creates this safe space for your whole team to feel that, if something doesn't feel like it's quite right, they're much more likely to speak up because you created that culture of expectation that you'll tell me if you think there are things we can do differently or do better instead of just waiting and stewing about it maybe.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely. One of the things that I tell my entire team, one of the first things that when I meet with anybody that started new is that same message, right? We will make mistakes. This is never about not making a mistake. This is about we made a mistake. Let's learn from it. Let's never do that again. And you can't get to that point unless you are communicating clearly, unless you are spending some time on what happened or how did that happen. It's not to put blame, it's to understand where we need to do something differently. Whether it was me, whether it was somebody else, we're going to make mistakes. That is a given. And the important part is creating an environment where people feel okay to take a risk, as long as it's not a business altering risk, right? Take a risk, learn from it, never do that again, and make sure we're all aligned.
Definitely. So think back over the last several years or so of your career and the various leaders that you've worked with. Any final advice that you would have for leaders who maybe are starting to engage more with an HR function, a talent development function? How can they be drawing on that expertise of people like you and the organizations that you're building within these large corporations?
Yeah, so the first thought as a leader is to remember, acknowledge, and build on the fact that you don't know all the answers. You will never know all the answers. So it's important for you to be open to asking questions, open to the thoughts that others bring to you, and surround yourself with a team that is capable of doing that. I learned a long time ago that if everyone around you is always agreeing with you, you're not doing something right. So it's important to make sure that you've surrounded yourself with a group of people that are willing to bring thoughts, ideas, feel comfortable doing that, but are also willing to respectfully challenge you if they don't agree with something. It's important to also set the rule that says at the end of the day, we may disagree, but once we've decided on a path, we're moving forward. We're all smiling and moving forward. I do that with my leader. My team does that with me, right? That's an important part. How everyone can partner with us in HR and overall communications, people strategy. I go back to where I started. For us to understand the business, we can help when we understand the business. And again, two-way street. A lot of that is on us. We have to take the initiative. We have to build the credibility. We have to do all the right things. But we also have to have a partner. If you, as the business unit, think my interaction with HR is transactional or tactical only, then you're not giving us the information that we need. And if we're not asking the right questions and delivering on our promises or results, then we're not doing what we need. So to me, it's important for both. Surround yourself with people as a leader that know and can do the work and can give you ideas, and then partner with HR and communications to make sure that we've got the right strategies in place.
Very well said. I love that. Okay, so indulge me in a little bit of fun here, Ashima. I have decided I want to try to start doing this lightning round because I've talked to so many leaders and they are all so different. And I think we can learn a little bit about each other through some of the personal things that we enjoy, as well as the professional experiences that we've had. So I have a couple of fun questions for you in kind of a lightning round.
Okay.
So, first, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs, love
No
it.
cats.
Okay. Favorite type of vacation? Beach, mountains, or city?
So beach, even before you finish the question, I was thinking about a beach already. City, depending on the city. I love doing sightseeing, but it depends on the city. But beach any day.
Okay. So, favorite author or a book recommendation?
So I love reading any action, thriller, mystery, any of those. John Grisham, for the longest time, was my favorite author. I haven't read any of his books lately. One of my other favorite authors, and I've read that entire series twice now, was Vince Flynn. He wrote a series of books. His main character was a CIA operative. The operative's name was Mitch Rapp. Love that series. So every 2 or 3 years, I pick up that entire series again and read it just because it's so much fun.
Nice little adventure for you. So, last question. If you could have any job in the world and money and training were not an issue, what would it be?
Oh, totally. Secret Service agent, CIA operative. I would like to be Mitch Rapp.
I love it. Yes, that would be very fun, just so long as it doesn't get too dangerous. I'm not sure.
Yes, exactly. But if you ever read these books, I mean, hey, it did get dangerous, but Mitch Rapp was a character that knew how to come out of anything. So
Love it. Well, thanks for joining us today, Ashima. This has really been a great, fun way to get some insights into the world of human resources and talent development and how we can really partner together at that leadership level to create the kind of organizations that are important to all of us. And those are organizations that work well together, where the people are considered first and where we're able to collaborate and to reach beyond just the standard goals to really accomplish a mission that is important to all of us. So, and thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Appreciate all that you do and just hope that you will continue to look for those opportunities to collaborate with your other partners within your business to create environments that your employees can truly thrive in.
We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.